Get your free copy of the complete tutorial at www.teachucomp.com/free. To make advanced changes to an image, you can use the Format Picture dialog box to control every aspect of your clip art in minute detail. You can access this dialog box by clicking the Format Picture button in the lower right corner of the Picture Styles group located on the Format tab within the ribbon. The options that you can change are grouped by category. You can see the categories shown in a list at the left side of this dialog box. To use the dialog box, you select a category from the left side and then make any changes to the available settings in the category at the right side. Once you have finished making your changes, you can then click the Close button in the right side of the dialog box. Unlike many other dialog boxes, the changes that you make here are applied immediately as they are set. So you may need to use the Reset Picture button to reset your image after experimenting with the settings in this box if you do not like them. This lesson will examine the settings that we can change in each category. First, let's examine the various categories and what can be changed in each category. The categories that you can select are Fill, Line Color, Line Style, Shadow, 3D Format, 3D Rotation, Picture, and text box. The first thing that you should note is that some of the options may not be available for the type of object that you have selected. For example, the picture category is only available when you have a picture selected. You can select the Fill category to change settings that affect the appearance of the inside fill of some types of clip art. For this to be used effectively with images, the selected image must contain a transparent section. If the image is already completely filled with its own content, then changing these settings would produce no visible effect. In our example here, we do not have a transparent background, so we would not be able to use the fill settings. However, if your selected image contains a transparent background, then you can use the settings in the Fill section to format the background area within the image. You can also select the No Fill option to remove any fill effect from the selected image. You can select the Solid Fill option to fill the background of an image with the color of your choosing. You simply use the Color drop-down and then select the desired color to use. After you select a color, you can then use the Transparency slider to set the level of transparency that should be applied to the background fill. You can select the Gradient Fill option to fill the background of the image with a multicolor gradient. A gradient is simply a color that transitions in hue or transparency from one angle to another. You can choose from one of the preset gradients available simply by making a selection from the Preset Colors drop-down. If you want to make your own custom gradient, then you can use the additional buttons and sliders to customize it. You can use the Type drop-down to select the type of gradient you want to use. Linear, which changes colors from one side to another across a straight line. Radial, which changes colors starting from an origin point and then radiates outwards in a circular pattern. Rectangular, which changes colors starting from an origin point and then radiates outwards in a rectangular pattern. Or Path, which follows the path of a line that you draw. Once you have selected a type of gradient, other than path, you can then select the specific variation you would like to use from the Direction drop-down. Note that if you do choose Path, the Direction drop-down won't be used. If you selected a linear gradient type, then you may select the angle at which the gradient changes by entering the desired angle in degrees into the Angle Spinner box. Once you have selected a type of gradient, you can use the Gradient Stop section to set the number and appearance of changing points in the gradient's color scheme. At its most basic level, a gradient must have at least 2 gradient stops. For example, if a gradient changed from black to white in a linear fashion, then it would have at least 2 gradient stops. You can have more if desired. Use the Gradient Stops drop-down to select the gradient stop whose properties you wish to set. Then use the Stop Position slider to set the position at which you want the gradient stop to be placed within the gradient pattern. You can use the Color drop-down to set what color you want the gradient to be at the selected point. You can then use the Transparency slider to set the transparency level of the color that you wish to select at a chosen point. If you wish to remove a gradient stop, select the gradient stop you wish to delete, and then click the Remove button to remove the selected stop from the gradient. You can also add more stops by clicking the Add button. The additional stops will simply be numbered and added to the Gradient Stops drop-down. You can then select them and make any changes to their settings as usual. When you add a stop, it will start out at the 0% stop position. Move the slider or use the arrows in order to change their position within the gradient. At the bottom of this tab, you can check the Rotate with Shape checkbox in order to set the gradient to rotate with the image if the image is rotated. You can select the Picture or Texture Fill option to fill the background of the selected image with another image of your choosing. Textures are simply images that are included in PowerPoint. To apply one of these preset textures, you can select your choice from the Texture drop-down. If you want to use a picture located on your computer, then click the File button to open the Insert Picture dialog box, where you can select the image file from your computer to insert. Or, if you have a picture stored on your clipboard, you can click the Clipboard option. We do not have anything stored on our clipboard, so this button will not be highlighted at the moment. If you did have something on your clipboard, you could click this and it would paste the contents of your clipboard into the background of the image. If you want to insert another piece of clip art into the background, you can click the Clip Art button to open up the Select Picture dialog box. You can use this dialog box to search for clip art to insert into the background of the image. You can change the background image's offset settings in the Stretch Options section. Use the left, right, top, and bottom spinner boxes to input the percentage by which the image should be offset from the selected side. If you want to tile or repeat the background as a texture, you can check the Tile Picture as Texture checkbox. Then, in the Tiling Options section, you can check the Offset X and Offset Y options to set the amount of horizontal and vertical offset to apply to the background image. You can use the Scale X and Scale Y spinner boxes to set the percentage of the image to display in the tiled background. You can also use the Alignment drop-down to set the alignment of the background image within the main image. You can use the Mirror Type drop-down to select the type of reflection to apply to the tiled images in the background. Finally, you can set the amount of transparency to apply to the background fill by using the Transparency slider. Also, if you want the background to rotate with the image if the main image is rotated, then click the Rotate with Shape checkbox. If you want to fill the image with the background fill of the slide, then simply select the Slide Background Fill option in the Fill category. The next category is Line Color. As applied to images, these attributes set the color of the picture's border. The three options shown at the right are No Line, Solid Line, or Gradient Line. If you do not want to have a line or wish to remove a line that has been applied, you can select the No Line option. If you wish to apply a solid line, then select the Solid Line option. Notice that when you do this, additional settings become available. First, select a color for the line border from the Color drop-down button's palette of choices. If the colors shown aren't quite what you need, notice that you can select the More Colors command. This will open up the Colors dialog box. In the Colors dialog box, you can create almost any color you desire. This dialog box is available in almost all of the places you can choose a color. You can either click the Standard tab and then select one of the colors shown in the honeycomb of color choices, or you can click the Custom tab and then select the color you want. Note that at the bottom of both tabs you can use a transparency slider to set the level of transparency you want to apply. If you open the Color dialog box to select a color, then click the OK button once you have made a choice to return to the Format Picture dialog box. Note that the transparency slider also appears as a choice in the dialog box as well. If you want to apply a gradient line, you can select the Gradient Line option in order to view a different set of options in the line color area. You can apply a gradient to a border in the same way that you can apply a gradient to a fill. So these options should be familiar to you, as we just covered them in the Fill section. You can click the Line Style category in order to make changes to any line, or in this case picture border, that changes its thickness and appearance. Use the Width spinner box to set the width of the line. If you have a multi-line border, use the Compound Type dropdown to select the style of multi-line appearance you want to use. You can use the Dash Type dropdown to select the style of line that you want to apply. There are several styles of dash lines available. The Cap Type dropdown allows you to change the appearance of the ends of lines. This isn't often used in applying picture borders, however, the Join type is. The Join Type dropdown allows you to set the appearance of the junction points where the two lines meet. Also note that if you are working with arrows, which is also considered a type of line, you can set their appearance in the Arrow Settings section. This would not be the case with picture borders, however. You can click the Shadow category at the left side of this dialog box in order to view the settings at the right that allow you to apply a shadow to your selected image. You can easily apply one of the pre-created shadow styles by selecting one from the Presets dropdown. If you want to customize your shadow's appearance, then you can start by choosing a shadow color from the Color dropdown. Then you can set the transparency of the shadow by using the Transparency slider. You can then set the size of the shadow by selecting a percentage in the Size slider. You can then use the Blur slider to set the amount of blurring applied to the edge of the shadow. You can angle the shadow by entering the desired angle into the Angle text box, or by moving the slider to the desired setting. You can control the amount of vertical offset that is applied to the shadow by using the Distance slider. If you want to apply a 3D effect to your selected image, then start by clicking the 3D Format category at the left side of the Format Picture dialog box. In the Bevel section, you can use the top and bottom drop-down buttons to select a style and thickness of beveling to apply. You can also enter values into the width and height spinner boxes if desired. In the Depth section, you can use the Color drop-down to select a coloring for the depth. You can also set the amount of coloring by using the Depth spinner box. Likewise, in the Contour section, you can use the Color drop-down to select a color for the contour of the bevel. You can then set the size of the contour by entering the size into the Size spinner boxes. In the Surface section, you can apply settings that change the appearance of the material and lighting used in the 3D setting. Use the Material drop-down to select the type of material that the 3D effect should emulate. Then use the Lighting drop-down to select an intensity and style of lighting to apply. You can then use the Angle spinner box to set the angle of the lighting if desired. You can rotate your image in 3D space by changing the settings that appear in the 3D Rotation category at the left side of the dialog box. When you select this category, you can easily apply a 3D rotation by selecting one from the Presets dropdown. If you wish to apply your own custom rotation, then you can use the buttons and sliders in the rotation section to accomplish that. You can enter a rotation angle for the X, Y, and Z coordinates by using the spinner boxes or by clicking the adjacent buttons. If you select a perspective style 3D rotation from the presets dropdown, then you'll be able to enter an angle into the perspective spinner box. If you are applying a 3D rotation to a text box, you would be able to keep the text appearing flat by checking the Keep Text Flat checkbox. This does not apply to pictures, however, so this is why in our example it is grayed out and it cannot be selected. You can use the distance from ground spinner box to set the amount of space that the selected object will appear to be from the ground. You can click the Picture category to make adjustments to the selected image. Note that unless you have an image selected, you will not be able to change any options to the right. Otherwise, you will see options at the right side of the Format Picture dialog box that allows you to perform some of the basic image editing that you can use to perform using the buttons available on the Format tab in the Picture Tools Contextual tab. You can use the Recolor drop-down to select a color to apply to the selected image. You can also use the brightness and contrast sliders to set the amount of brightness and contrast for the selected image. Once again, you can click the Reset button to reset your changes. Like what you see? Pick up your free copy of the complete tutorial at www.teachucomp.com/free.